Hi there, everybody. I'm Chase McPherson. I'm creator of the Bloodbound novel series. The fourth one in the series is coming out March 11th. It's called Extreme Temperatures. You can learn more at my website, bychasemcp.com. And you're watching and listening to Two Geeks Talking.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, everyone. Two Geeks Talking is an entertainment industry interview show where we interview the creative people from the comic, film, TV, movie, and video game industries. And of course, I'm your host, Kurt Sasso. We're joined today by a returning guest. It has been a couple of years since he was last on the show, talking about his Bloodbound series. At the time, we were just talking about issues 1 and maybe 2, I believe. But now he's on to issue 4. We're joined by the ever-talented Chase McPherson. How are you doing today?
Doing great. Thank you for having me on again.
It's good having you. Look, started with the C. Chris came to mind.
I will tell you, I have been called everything from Chance to Trace to Chisholm, one instance of Katie. I don't even want to get into how that came about, but yeah, I'm totally used to.
Well, then, for those who don't know anything about yourself as a creative person, tell us who you are, Chase, and what you're bringing to Two Geeks Talking today.
Well, I have a background in journalism. I currently work for a local TV station in Alabama as a web journalist. Every once in a while, I may appear on camera, so I've gotten used to creative writing, writing for various purposes, and um, I've had a love of the printed word right from the cradle. My grandmother was a high school librarian. She always encouraged me to read and write, and writing is a good cleaning catharsis for me. And so I've taken the liberty of creating a novel series with vampires, demons, um, mystery, espionage, romance, little bit of humor from time to time. And that series is called Bloodbound. I started writing it in the early 2010s. I kind of hit a writer's block three volumes in, and then 2 summers ago, I decided I would reboot the concept. Fast forward to now, and I'm about to release the fourth volume in that series, which I've called Extreme Temperatures.
And because, at the time of recording this, it's winter, it's freaking cold up here, at least in Canada. I'm not sure how it is down in Alabama, but
Oh yeah, 5 inches of snow at the start of the year, which was really great. We've had worse. We've certainly had much worse. I think we were spared the brunt of it, but yeah, freaking cold.
looking at your characters here, you've always had a great batch of characters, especially since we last talked here. Let's dive into book 4 specifically. Hunter Reeves is your main character. How has he evolved since that first book when we last spoke? And what new challenges does he face in book 4?
Evolution is a pretty good word for it. We've developed the fact that he is not only dealing with being a newly formed vampire, he also learned he has demonic lineage. We don't know specifically what type of demon lurks within him, and that's kind of the overreaching arc in this next series of books that I've got lined up. He's developing new powers. The third book is called Alternate Tracks, and the reason I call that is because we're learning that there is an alternate dimension in which there are basically carbon copies of every person and being in our world in that world. And we meet a alternate world hunter who is a rock star, more in touch with his own demonic lineage. And Hunter is learning that he's got demonic powers, this sense of psychic telepathy. He can read other people's minds, get in touch with their worst fears, and kind of manifest them in an almost virtual reality sort of setting. He has the ability to absorb and project mental thoughts. And so in this fourth one, we're kind of dipping into that a little bit deeper and going into Hunter's dark recesses of his mind and actually touching on mental health themes, mental illness, depression, something that I have lived with, am living with, am dealing with. And Hunter thought he was escaping by becoming a vampire. He thought that, if all these physical limitations go away by becoming a vampire, maybe the mental health problems will go away as well. And we're learning in this fourth book that is not the case.
How do these abilities and powers help you not only as a writer, but how do they help the readers that are actually consuming your books en masse?
I would hope that it's sort of a gateway to therapy in a way. I've had to deal with these issues, like I say, in my own world, and I've had to deal with them both with and without insurance, meaning with and without therapy. I've had help when I could afford it, and I've had to deal without help when I couldn't. And I thought, since I'm kind of putting myself, a little bit of myself into each of these books, this would be a way to give myself some free therapy by converting some of my personal traumas into this fictional universe. Maybe also help show people it's okay to not be okay, and to seek help where and when you can, because there are resources for people who don't have the money to afford, in-person therapy. um, and I'm trying to show there's a physical manifestation of Hunter's depression that features prominently in this book, and I wanted to show we all have that. We all have some sort of manifestation of our mental troubles. And I'm hoping that I'm doing this concept justice and just showing people, it's okay to talk about these things.
The fact that you have the written page here as your medium in order to dive deep into these particular topics with mental health and with these particular characters, how is it reaching the actual audience, and what has been their feedback regarding these issues that you're diving into?
Well, to be honest, I haven't gotten a lot of feedback. Being indie and being, having no real gravitas behind me, it's I don't have a built-in audience. But for the few people that I do come into contact with, particularly on Blue Sky, I've moved from what I call the other place onto Blue Sky, where people are much more comfortable with the concept of open and honest feedback. What little feedback I have gotten has been really positive. It's been, I'm glad you're talking about this. I'm looking forward to reading about this. And that's the core of the whole issue. It needs to be discussed. It needs eyes on it. And I'm hoping that people gradually will put their eyes on this and be entertained by it, and maybe a little bit better informed as well.
Looking at your characters here and the supporting characters that you have in this particular series, starting from book one to your latest book here that's coming out in March, you said, right?
March 11th.
Out of all of these characters that you've written, besides the main core characters, who are some supporting characters that we should really look out for that maybe will spark our own interest in the series?
Um, there are some supporting characters that have featured in almost every book. One of those is a medical. Uh, she was on the medical team, and her name is Dr. Ife. She departed in the second book to help run a homeless support organization in San Francisco. She comes back in this fourth book because she and Hunter have developed a good, strong bond. And Hunter's in dire straits in many ways in this fourth book. He is developing um, elemental powers, the power to create fire and the power to create ice. Hence the title Extreme Temperatures, because that's how I roll. Um, anyway, she comes back because she and Hunter always got on. Hunter found he was able to really open up to Dr. Ife, and that's going to be our conduit into the mental health discussion. Um, there's another member of the Order, which is the organization to which all these characters belong, uh, called Mugen. Um, he is also got some medical training, but he is more of a jack of all trades. You'll find him piloting the airplane or piloting the chopper or whatever. He's always there. He's got a lot of knowledge in his head and skills that suit virtually every situation. He's going to have a prominent role near the end of book four. Um, and there's going to also be a a character that was actually killed off in book three, reappearing in book four in what I hope is an interesting way.
Not like the whole Dexter thing where it's just it's all inside his head.
No, definitely not.
The fact that you have elements of fantasy, romance, and horror are really amazing to see in this particular series because you're really weaving that fluidly throughout your entire novels. That, from what I've gotten to read here, how do you balance that flexibility in your writing when it comes to these types of genres, especially when you're still trying to remain true to not only yourself as an author, to your characters as well?
Well, I appreciate the good words. First of all, that's really good to hear. Um, it is a juggling act. It is hard to maintain a balance. It, in the writing process, especially in this last one, I read the first three chapters. I've probably read and reread more than a dozen times, and it's it's been really difficult actually to get this fourth book out. The previous series puttered out after the third. I had another series called The Memoirs of Abel Mondragon that also petered out after the third one because I tend to work in trilogies, but I was really determined to push the Bloodbound reboot further. And so I'm setting a lot of obstacles before I'm even writing page one. I have to get a fourth book out. I have got to continue the story and I've got to maintain interesting twists with all these characters. Um, so there's a lot of second guessing, there's a lot of triple guessing, rereading, rewriting. And then also, I'm having to tell myself, if you feel like you're hitting a wall, put it aside for a while. And I went almost 4 months without writing a single extra word. Um, and I told myself, embrace the pauses, think about what you want to think about, and then it'll come. And I've had a lot of sleepless nights over the last year for whatever reasons. And I noticed that I was getting ideas about how to continue this book during these moments of insomnia. So I'm just like, okay, you know what? Embrace it. So uh, one night I only had 45 minutes of sleep because I kept waking up saying, well, Hunter might want to say this, or Hunter might be seeing this or picking up on this. And then, okay, pick up the laptop, start typing, and it works. It works for me. It comes to the detriment of my sleep and my ability to recharge, but at the end of the day, I was able to get past the writer's block and get the fourth book written. It took almost 9 months total to get it written, compared to books one and two, which 6 weeks for the two of those. But just embracing, yeah, that was what I had to do. I had to embrace the pause and embrace the insomnia because apparently that's how my creative process is going to work.
But you're also focusing on an end goal, though. You're focusing on finishing the actual book itself. You're focusing on writing a good story and writing connecting characters and doing your twists and everything like that. So you shouldn't have to rush what you need to rush because of some arbitrary deadline. I mean, you look at authors these days, whether or not they can crank out books left and right year after year, then that's wonderful. But if you take a look at, say, Hallmark writers for those types of movies, they're churning them out like in a 4 week span. So you can't compare yourself to other people. Like your medium is what you enjoy doing, and you're getting the books out there. It would be worse for you if you literally just stopped for years on end, from a mental health perspective as well as from a writing perspective, because you would just kind of rust in terms of your creativity. But you're pushing through and you're doing what you need to get it done.
That's why I think I'm also lucky in that I'm not trying to get signed with an actual publisher. I'm in control of my own story, for lack of a better term. Um, and if I trust myself and trust the process that works for me, the end product's going to be great.
What is the most misunderstood aspect about being a writer and an author for people who don't follow that particular profession?
I would say that probably the biggest misconception is that we are word and letter perfect 24 hours a day. Um, I can tell you, as from a web journalist perspective, that is definitely not the case. When you're trying to put actual facts out into the ether, it's very easy to make mistakes. We had a breaking news situation this past week, as a matter of fact, and someone had asked me to proofread an article, and I published it, and I missed in the very first paragraph. There was a bracket with the word today in it because we had expected this thing to happen. So we wrote today in brackets, and I missed it. And so we put this article out that said date, parentheses, when it should have said Thursday. Um, and it's much the same thing with fiction writing or writing anything in the publishing industry. It's very easy to have a mistake go unnoticed for weeks, months, maybe even past publishing time. Um, I have had to re-upload the first Bloodbound novel. This is the seventh time I have republished Reawakening because I on another pass through I noticed a superfluous punctuation or a missing punctuation, and that's just how it is. I'm taking care of every aspect of getting this book published, including proofreading and editing. I ask people, as many people as possible, to proofread. They give me notes, all clear, and it still shows up. It's just how it's going to be. But I think that's also a positive for being an indie publisher. I can, if as soon as I find those mistakes, I can correct them and get the new version pushed out within a matter of minutes, as opposed to a bureaucracy of your Random House and your HarperCollins and whatever, where it's going to have to run through a chain of command, and then it's going to have to be completely reprinted. And too bad about these other copies that were printed. What can you do?
So this is still all digital. Will you eventually make this into like a trade paperback or into a novel series or something like that, where you have a collected edition of all of your stories?
If it's offered to me, certainly. I'm not gonna not field offers if an actual bona fide publisher comes along. I did try through the Amazon platform offering them in paperback and hardback, but their pricing structure just makes it unappealing. Because they have a certain benchmark. If your book is a certain number of pages, it's going to have to be offered at this minimum of a price. And so, whereas the digital versions are all 99 cents, the paperback version I couldn't sell for anything less than 13.19, and the paperback for 24.99, which I guess is kind of standard across the industry, but it's still too big of a disparity. I can't expect people to want to buy the physical copy when they can get the digital for under $1.
Yeah, yeah, and it's a lot easier to read digitally these days too. I mean, short of you turning your series into an audiobook, that's a possibility as well too. But it just comes down to the marketing side of things.
Well, self-publishing audiobooks is a thing. as well. And books one and two are actually available right now on Audible and Apple. I found a marvelous voice actor. He goes by Gav VA. He's just like me in that he wants a career as a voice actor, voiceover artist. He does his own ASMR videos, his own YouTube channel. And I was listening to uh one of his YouTube tracks, and I was like, he's got the perfect diction for my story. I hear in my head as I'm writing someone narrating this as an audiobook, and it was damn perfect. And so I reached out to him and said, hey, would you be interested in doing this? Fast forward a couple of months, and he just finished the second book in the series. He's about to start on the third. Um, and I kind of like having this avenue because I can help other people who are just like me, wanting to have their voice heard. In this case, actually wanting their voice heard, and offering them a platform for which to do that.
So then, are you going to do any spin-off series, or have you any in the works? Like, I believe I briefly saw something on your website too. I'm curious about how that process is going for you, and what is it, I should say.
Yeah, the last time we talked, I had mentioned that that I'd already planned out the next three books in the series, and that one of them was actually going to go into the backstory of one of our other main characters, an investigator by the name of Kai, who's actually the vampire who made Hunter. I decided actually to incorporate that spin-off novel into the narrative of book four. So, what you're going to see in book four is you're going to have one or two chapters of the main story with Hunter. And then we're going to have a chapter with Kai's backstory. And I've made it easy to tell because the font for the chapter title is going to be different. Um, and and I made that change because I recognized as I was reading the spinoff, I was halfway through the spinoff, and I was like, I's going through kind of the exact same thing Hunter is at this point. He's dealing with radical changes in his physical makeup, and he's dealing with doubt and depression and uh, darker ideations. And so I was like, we're going to combine. Um, that being said, I have thought of other ways to spin off the series. I'm not going to pursue those until I've finished. I feel like I finished the major story arc of Mothership Bloodbound because I've now worked myself into a corner basically where at least the next book is also going to have to do some splitting to tell Kai's backstory. And I don't want to turn this into the book form of a daytime soap opera where you're going to have to track six different stories in one book. And I don't think I have that many fonts available to denote those changes.
When you start getting into wingdings or impact font or something like that, you know you've gone too far in your character splitting.
Yeah, if I hit Hottenschweiler, God help me.
I do hate to say it, Chase, but that ends this particular episode of Two Geeks Talking. I want to thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you so much. It's always fun to talk about myself. It's something I don't do very often, but it's good to talk about the things that I'm doing.
Well, I think a good goal for you in 2025 is get on as many podcasts as you can, share the wealth of what is Bloodbound, and really kind of showcase the amazing talent that you have to the masses in different areas.
I appreciate that very much. Thank you.
Before I let you go, where can we find you? How can we support you? Of course, where is Bloodbound available in terms of website, social media, and online?
Social media. My Blue Sky handle is by chasemcp.com. That's also my new personal and professional website. Bloodbound is available for 99 cents on Kindle, Kobo, Nook. Itch.io is actually pay what you want. Drive-through fiction is also an option. Apple Books, Audible is actually uh, an option for books one and two. Book three is in production now. Book four in the series, Extreme Temperatures, comes out on all those digital platforms on March 11th.
Well, like I said, that ends this particular episode of Two Geeks Talking. You could, of course, find this interview and 1,200 plus others on our YouTube channel, because I'm not even going to bother with the website. It's so foobarred. Our YouTube channel is youtube.com/TGT Media. The podcast you can find at twogeekstalking.podbean.com, or just search Two Geeks Talking, that's TWO, wherever you get your podcasts. And as I say every week, everyone has a story to tell. It's up to me to help bring that out. Thanks for listening and watching on Two Geeks Talking.